morning and welcome to Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. It's Tuesday, the 19th of August. Great to have your company this morning. Coming up on the show, Trump promises, I will keep Ukraine safe. Does this mean a security guarantee from the United States? Plus the telling moment when a journalist asks Zelensky if he'll be willing to give up territory. All the details from this Trump-Zelensky European meeting at the White House. The government's announcing the biggest change to building consents since 2004. We've got the Property Council and the Minister on to discuss what happens if your roof caves in. Who do you go after? And you're never too young to start. The Napier 7-year-old who's opened his own burger shop with a bit of help from his dad. That all ahead, plus the Kiwi family moving to Australia to access life-saving drugs for their daughter. And Chippy's on the show, 7:35. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. They've been discussing the conflict between Russia and Ukraine following Trump's meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. Other European leaders are also there. Zelensky says there needs to be pressure on Russia to end the war. Trump says substantial progress is being made. Councils say a revamped building consents framework provides better balance. The government's proposing a new liability model that holds parties responsible only for their share of work. It's also allowing councils to voluntarily consolidate their building consent authorities. Local Government New Zealand Vice President Campbell Barry says consents will likely be processed more quickly because councils won't be as risk-averse.
We still want those standards to be held high and expectations to be held high, but it won't be councils and ratepayers at the end when things do go wrong, which is the current case.
A soldier who admitted to espionage has revealed more details about his connections to far-right groups. The court-martial continues at Manawatu's Linton military camp today after he admitted trying to pass on critical and classified information to who he thought was a foreign agent. The soldier had links to the Dominion movement and Action Zealandia, but maintains they were a positive support for him. Open Justice reporter Jeremy Wilkinson says many case details are being kept out of the public eye. He says journalists are being excluded when sensitive information is discussed. An apology from Public Service Minister Judith Collins as teachers prepare to strike over pay. Last week, Collins twice claimed a secondary teacher with a decade's experience earned $147,000, but she's since confirmed just 450 teachers, less than 2% of the workforce, earn that much. The PPTA says most teachers with a decade's experience earn $103,000 a year. Collins said she's sorry for mixing the message. Brewers could soon make beer faster. An Otago University study has discovered playing white noise can reduce the fermentation process by up to 31 hours without significantly affecting the flavour. Fermentation can take on average 5 to 7 days. Associate Professor Graham Ayres says these findings could have a substantial impact on the beer industry.
Time is money, so any time you can shave off a fermentation is good news for brewers.
All trains in the capital will be replaced by buses during off-peak times today due to a union meeting. The Rail and Maritime Transport Union meet annually, and Metlink says it fully supports its union members in attendance. Buses will run on all lines between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, Auckland FC have signed 9-cap all-white Ollie Sale. The 29-year-old goalkeeper replaces Alex Paulson, who's headed back to Bournemouth. Australian driver Oscar Piastri will have a grandstand named after him at the Albert Park Formula One circuit in Melbourne next March. Gael Monfils will return to Auckland as the 38-year-old looks to defend his ASB Classic tennis title in January. Finn Fisher-Black and Dion Smith have been selected to ride the Vuelta a España Grand Cycling Tour starting Sunday morning.
Just gone 3 after 7. You're watching Herald Now. We'll get to the latest out of Washington DC and the White House in just a second. First, though, this coalition government needs to tighten its agenda as well as its belt. They're giving us too many of these silly little stories at the moment. Have you noticed? Helmets or no helmets for cyclists? Which name comes first on the cover of your passport? A ban and then a reversal on the ban on marshmallows and hot chocolates from coffee machines in hospitals. Yes, these stories have all hit the headlines in the last week. The problem, most working families can't even afford to use their passports right now. A Hawaiian holiday on the cards? No. The only ones really dusting off their travel IDs are probably moving across the ditch. This is the stuff that your average punter does not really care about. It is not the type of news that puts food in the mouths of your kids. The Clark government got bogged down by a bunch of these silly little things. Think the size of shower heads and light bulbs. Remember that whole thing? Instead of asking officials whether little Johnny should be allowed to ride a bike without a helmet, something no decent parent would allow anyway, why not keep your eyes on the big stuff, the big prize? And there's no shortage of that around. Just yesterday, Fitch warned our AA plus credit rating could be at risk if we get slack on fiscal discipline, if we see a further correction to the housing market, which isn't completely off the cards, or if we see another spike in unemployment, also not completely out of the woods yet. It's not that this coalition is not focused on these things, certainly more focused than the last lot. It's just that there's a bit too much noise around on the little things that don't actually matter to the swinging middle that National needs if they want to finish the big jobs that they've set out to achieve. Distraction is the enemy of progress. Passports and helmets are distractions, and lately there've been a few too many of them.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, rather an unsettled looking Tuesday ahead of us. Cold air feeding up from the south, bringing some snowfall over the higher passes of the South Island, and for this afternoon, perhaps even out towards the Desert Road as well. We'll find a southerly change moves up through Wellington, giving a pretty windy, wet looking story there. And across that western side of the North Island, showers through the daytime. Where we'll find that snowfall, though, there are some road snowfall warnings across many of the passes, including the Desert Road this afternoon. We've also got a strong wind watch out for Wellington as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Down south, still some showers that push in through, still pretty windy around the likes of the Otago Peninsula. Still a bit of snow around first thing, but that should lift as we head through the morning time. It starts off fairly wet through Canterbury. Rain moves northwards. It will become more showery. Still with those snow showers across the Canterbury High Country. The best of the sunshine at the other side of the hills through the western coast. A windy, wet-looking start today here in Wellington. We'll keep hold of those southerly winds through the daytime. That wind watch in force this afternoon. We'll also find showers feeding up this eastern coast, mainly skirting the likes of Napier and pushing through in towards Wairoa. This western side of the North Island, well, that stays pretty showery throughout the day with longer spells of rain from time to time, some heavier falls, perhaps even the risk of some thunder and hail as we head through Tuesday.
7 after 7, you're watching Herald Now. Right, let's get you across what's happening in Washington, D.C. We've got Zelensky for a meeting with Trump, but we also have a bunch of European leaders, including Starmer and Macron, who are there for moral support. First meeting underway between Trump and Zelensky. They took questions from reporters beforehand. Big issues. One, Trump hinted that he would take care of Ukraine, he would protect Ukraine. Is that an indication that perhaps the United States is willing to be a backstop for any cessation in hostilities between Russia and Ukraine? Would they be a backstop to some sort of peace agreement? The other point to come out, Trump makes clear this is not about a ceasefire. He's looking for a long-term solution. So if you're on the battleground in Ukraine right now, that won't be good news because you want the fighting to be stopped straight away. And we know Zelensky has previously said you cannot negotiate with a gun to your head. Let's have a listen to some of their comments.
President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia.
So that's quite crucial. You heard there from President Volodymyr Zelensky when asked, Are you willing to give up territory? Are you willing to allow the Russians to keep some territory, keep some land? He answered with, we need to stop this war. Now, the good news is there was no shouting this time. There was at least all smiles between Zelensky and Trump. I'm joined now from the Associate Professor of Politics at the University of Otago, Nicholas Koo. Nicholas, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to have you on the show. What do you make of the comments so far from both leaders?
Well, so far so good. The devil really is in the details. So it does all really hinge at the end of the day on a security guarantee from the United States. And it's reassuring to hear that Trump is, at least in theory, interested in this. Now, as we've said, the key is the details. Is Trump really, at the end of the day, willing to enforce any security guarantee that the United States issues? So this is the big question, the whole issue of U.S. reliability. And also, there's this whole issue of territory, Sure, I mean, if that's what it takes to get a deal, but even then, the devil in the details. How much territory? Is there going to be legal recognition of the territory that's given up? So, the more we probe, the more questions there are on this issue.
I want to play for you. Yesterday, we spoke to the ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador to New Zealand and Australia, and I asked him about this exact issue, about territory, giving up or ceding territory. And he put it this way. I want to get your take on it. Have a listen.
That territory can end up under the Russian occupation, which will never be recognized by Ukraine or anybody else, but it cannot be ceded as a sovereign territory to Russia. And that's very important to keep it in mind. As you remember, Baltic nations, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they were under the Soviet occupation for 50 years. They had their own governments in place, and they were never recognized as part of the Soviet Union. So we may end up with having a similar arrangement.
So, Nicholas, in other words, they can not cede sovereignty because they can't under their constitution, but they could allow some territory to be occupied by the Russians.
Sure. So this would be the contours of a deal, right? Some sort of agreement whereby the Ukrainians cede territory, but it's not legally recognized as being ceded for the reasons the ambassador has stated. And again, I have to repeat, sure, if that's what it takes to get an agreement, but at the end of the day, there needs to be enforcement of an agreement. And this is where the U.S. security guarantees are absolutely critical. Now, I would say a couple of months ago, earlier in the year, Zelensky himself said that security guarantees without American guarantees are not security guarantees. So it's not even the case that Europeans can actually think that they can actually help out. That's great. But at the end of the day, you need enforcement and power to back up any security guarantee that's issued by the United States.
So any deal that might be agreed to, obviously we're not going to get one today, but any deal that's agreed to with just a European backstop isn't going to be sufficient in your mind. It has to have the Americans' firepower behind it.
That's exactly correct. There has to be U.S. Power to back up all this. Now, this is where this whole issue of the reliability of the Trump administration is going to be tested in a really significant way. And I will not underestimate the challenges that the Trump administration faces in issuing a security guarantee. It's fine that we get an agreement in the short run, but this security agreement is going to be tested over years.
Yeah. And what about this idea? I'm just seeing the latest reporting. This is from Zelensky. He says it was their best talks yet. They did talk specifically about security guarantees from the United States. And he says it was a constructive and specific meeting. What about this idea that you would negotiate a peace deal without first a ceasefire? Is that unusual?
Well, it's done before, but at the same time, I want to point out that this is not the core issue. While in the short run, one would want Ukraine to have the sort of assurance. At the same time, the core issue is actually getting to a peace deal and the enforcement of the deal. So we don't want to see further losses, and this is the issue with the short run. Why Zelensky's insisting on a short-run agreement, which is that he wants to stem the deaths and the losses on the Ukrainian battlefront. And this is the core issue. So if he can get that would be fantastic. But I just don't see Putin budging on this issue.
Well, let's hope that they do make some progress and do budge a little each way. I appreciate your time this morning. Nicholas Koo, Associate Professor of Politics at the University of Otago. In reaction to that historic meeting at the White House, of course, we've just heard from Trump and Zelensky, and later the Europeans, the gaggle of European leaders will file in, standing room only. You've got Macron there, you've got Starmer there, you've got von der Leyen there, Merz from Germany's there as well, so they'll all file in and have their say. The hype squad, the cheerleaders, whatever you want to call them, they're there for Zelensky's support, no doubt about that. 14 after 7 now. It's been billed as the biggest change to building consents in decades. Building and Construction Minister Chris Pink has unveiled a raft of changes supposed to make it easier to build in New Zealand. So what are they and what do they mean? Leonie Freeman, Property Council New Zealand Chief Executive, joining me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Let's run through a couple of these. Well,
sure.
The main one is it's proportional liability. So
yes.
If a builder stuffs something up,
yep.
You know, the roof caves in on your house, the builder's responsible for the part that they cocked up.
Yep.
You know, your designer responsible for the part that they cocked up,
yep.
rather than lumping it all with council.
Yeah, well, council's been the sort of the last man standing. So if all those other parties have disappeared, then council, which is all of us as ratepayers, has ended up being that person. And that's then created a sort of a range of perverse outcomes because council's really risk averse about development. So what Chris Pink is trying to do is to say, look, let's apportion the liability, but he is making it really clear, and this is the important thing, that to make sure the consumer protection is still there through warranties or some sort of home insurance type thing.
Which do you think will have to be mandatory?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because
so
he hasn't said that yet,
no,
right? He's
no.
not that far down the hill.
No, and that is the detail that we still need to see because this legislation is still a year away from being passed, but it's the start of a whole raft of changes. So it is important that people keep in mind that the quality of building is still absolutely critical, and consumer protection is critical. But what this is trying to do is unlock a whole lot of blockages and inconsistencies and inefficiencies.
And it's about where the buck stops when something goes wrong.
Yes, yeah. That's right.
Okay, so what about insurance? Because I was talking to Malcolm Fleming from Certified Builders this morning, and he was saying that he reckons about 60% of builders right now have either a warranty, like a building warranty, or insurance.
Yes.
Which means 40% don't.
Yes. So
which is bloody worrying if you're doing renos at the moment.
So really what they need to be looking at in terms of the consumer protection is there's different things around the world, like Malcolm was talking about warranties, and so that could be compulsory. There's also situations like in Europe where when you buy a new house, it comes with a 10-year insurance package. So if something goes wrong with the house, so in the first few years, instead of going back and dealing with builders and everybody else, you deal with the insurance company just like you do if you have a car accident these days. So that's a different form of it, but some sort of thing there is essential to go with all of this change.
His preference is for an industry-backed guarantee. So if you go to your certified builders or your master builders
yes.
or whatever it is, let's say the builder that did your roof that's now in your lap as
yes.
you're eating dinner, that person might go belly up,
yes.
and you can't chase them. But if they're part of that group,
absolutely,
they're all for one for all. Yep. Someone will come and help you.
Yes.
And it will be paid for.
Absolutely. So it's either some sort of whole of industry, which is compulsory warranty, or some sort of insurance. So the government, I know, are working on that, and we're really looking at the detail with interest.
This is the government saying, "Oh, this is going to make building cheaper." This sounds to me like more people will be needing to get more insurance, more cover. That's going to be passed on to us.
Yeah, I think what Chris Pink's trying to do is the challenge with our building system at the moment is it's really inefficient and it doesn't really work for a lot of people. So what he's trying to do is, with a whole number of things, is to make the process more efficient. Because at the moment there's 66 different councils that you deal with consenting. Each have different interpretations of the Act. What he's trying to do is streamline the process, make it more efficient, so therefore the cost of that will reduce while still protecting consumerism. So,
he'll try and make us some savings in other places.
Yes.
To offset what will be an increase in insurance
and
premiums.
Possibly, depending on how they structure it. But what I think people don't quite appreciate is how inefficient the process is at the moment. And if we can save a lot of time and effort and things like this, it's important.
Because if you've got a developer like a nationwide developer,
yes.
they have a set of plans.
Yes.
They go to this council and it's a yes. They go to that council and it's a no.
That's right.
Just dumb.
Yeah, and just for an example, if you look at Christchurch, and again, there's no criticism of the councils because they're all stretched and under-resourced, but you can drive 20 minutes.
Stuck in, Leonie.
Yeah.
Go for it.
You can drive 20 minutes in Christchurch and deal with 3 different councils with 3 different rules, 3 different product registers and all that sort of challenge. So if you're trying to create efficiencies and duplication, which reduces cost, it's really difficult. So that's where what it's trying to do.
Great. Very clear analysis for us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.
That's Leonie Freeman, Property Council New Zealand Chief Executive. It is 19 after 7 here on Herald Now. Chris Penk, the Minister in charge of all of this, will be on the show live after 8. Next, a family forced to move to Australia so that their 4-year-old daughter could access life-saving medication. This is Trikafta. Then, a Kiwi, Sarah Shaw, has been released from a US immigration centre finally. But are her troubles over? And what's the warning for everyone else? We'll speak to a lawyer out of the States.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. Great to have your company. Another quick update for you out of the US, out of the Oval Office, where this historic meeting is taking place. Trump, Zelensky and the gaggle of European leaders. Starmer has come out and said that the security guarantee that Zelensky and Trump have been discussing in the last hour, if this is true, he's saying, that would be a historic step forward for ending the war in Ukraine. So that is good news, at least for now. We'll bring you more on that shortly. A Lower Hutt family is moving to Australia so that their 4-year-old daughter can access life-saving cystic fibrosis medication, Trikafta. For mum Kayla Delaney, the news her baby had the disease was, as you can imagine, completely devastating. The average life expectancy for people with cystic fibrosis is 31. Trikafta can extend that by decades, but in New Zealand it's only funded for patients over the age of 6. Lisa Burns is the CEO at Cystic Fibrosis New Zealand and is with me at the desk. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Ryan.
This family is not the only one.
Nope.
There are many out there. For people unfamiliar with Trikafta, what does it do for people?
So the one thing that makes Trikafta different is that it treats the underlying cause of cystic fibrosis. It's not a cure. But it does more than just treat the symptoms. It is a lifelong preventative treatment, and we know from the evidence in our 6 and overs just how life-changing it has been.
What have you seen?
Reduction in lung transplants, reduction in hospitalisations, reduction in IV antibiotics, and in inpatient care. We've seen people who have previously been unable to go out and exercise or get a job. All of these things have been made possible from this medication, and that's what we advocated for when we were trying to fight to get access for our 6 and overs. We knew that this would be life-changing. We knew that it would add decades. Now we have the evidence to demonstrate that this medication can be considered a really important and valuable part of our healthcare system.
Now we know that Pharmac is looking into whether they will allow it for 2 to 5-year-olds. Are there legitimate medical concerns about giving this medication to 2 to 5-year-olds?
I don't believe so. There is so much global evidence. Trikafta for 2 to 5-year-olds is now available in 40 plus countries. New Zealand is lagging behind again. We know that damage occurs very early in life, as the example you gave earlier. We know that a child's first X-ray at 1 can show inflammation and damage, and that starts early.
And this is like, we're talking lung damage, we're talking serious damage, we're talking life-shortening damage.
Scarring, inflammation, bronchiectasis, stuff that becomes difficult to reverse.
Do you think it's about money?
It's absolutely about the budget. We know that it's going through the assessment. We know that Pharmac's traditional assessment of medicines is based on a cost-benefit analysis. We know that a big part of getting Trikafta 6 and over funded was the fact that there is an improvement in lung function. You can't measure lung function in a 2-year-old. So if you go with a traditional cost-benefit analysis, it's not going to stack up. And that's our concern at the moment, is they need to consider the societal impact.
How frustrating when you have a child that you could be, their body is doing damage to itself, and you're sitting there and you can't stop it, and you know that there's a way that you can.
Yeah, that's why families are leaving the country. That's why it's just, you will do anything for your kids. And what we want to see is Pharmac make the same decision that other similar countries who have a similar health technology assessment process to New Zealand. They made an academic and a clinical decision, not a financial one. Because if you're trying to make this stack up to a number at the bottom of a spreadsheet,
you'll never get the data you need.
And if you compare that to other medicines, it'll never get funded. So we are advocating for a consideration of the societal impact, childhood trauma, medical trauma, delayed in going to school. These kids should be navigating riding bikes and playing in the playground and going to birthday parties. Instead, at 3, they're learning how to make up their own medication and having to nebulise and not go to school until 6 years old. These are life-changing impacts, and we know in our older population that the medical trauma of these IV lines and procedures, nasogastric tubes, they cause lifelong damage, and that's what we want to. These kids have got a chance to have almost a normal life expectancy the earlier they can get treatment. And with New Zealand being so far behind the rest of the world, these kids are going to end up with damage that will be irreversible.
Lisa, appreciate you coming on the program this morning. We are going to follow up, of course, with Pharmac and with David Seymour as well, who I know has a strong interest in this. So thank you very much for being with me.
Thanks, Ryan.
It's Lisa Burns, the Chief Executive at Cystic Fibrosis New Zealand. 27 minutes after 7 now. We would love your feedback this morning on any of the topics we're discussing, from DC to the roof caving in at your house. Flick us an email, ryan@nzherald.co.nz. Right, it is your worst nightmare, spending 3 weeks locked up in a tough US immigration facility over a paperwork issue. But that was the reality for Kiwi mother Sarah Shaw and her 6-year-old son, who were taken to a Texas detention centre after they tried to re-enter the US from Canada. They've now been released, but it was not without a fight. Minda Thorwood is a lawyer representing Sarah Shaw, joins us now. Hi, Minda.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. First of all, just want to clarify, the 6-year-old child in this case had all the right, was able to pass through the border, but because was with mum, was detained as well. Did Sarah, is that correct? And did Sarah have everything, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, or other way around?
So her child actually did have a valid travel document, and it was unexpired. Unfortunately, there's broad discretion at the border. Border Patrol has a lot of discretion to simply deny entry to people, even if they have those documents. That usually doesn't happen, though, or shouldn't happen unless there's some kind of an admissibility issue that's new that comes up, or some new criminal issue. But this was, a 6-year-old child who was still admissible. There was no reason for his entry to be denied. He had the valid travel document, but they chose to put him in removal, to detain him with his mother and put him in removal proceedings instead. And as for Ms. Shaw, she had what was called a combo card. And so I don't know if I'm freezing on your side, but I am a little bit on mine.
No, you're good.
And so it's like an EAD, a work permit that's also a travel document. And she had renewed the work permit part of it, but not the travel document part of it, and just kind of made a mistake and thought she had renewed all of it together.
Right.
Because it's one card. So it was a very understandable mistake, and it was like a paperwork mistake. Like she was authorized to travel. She just hadn't renewed the travel document.
Okay. Now that she has been released, I imagine she must be feeling a huge sense of relief. What has she said to you?
She's very relieved. She doesn't want to talk to the media yet, for sure. She just wants to recuperate and recover and relax at home, spend time with her family. I think she's just, trying to pick up the pieces right now.
You say that it was basically a paperwork issue, an admin error, for want of a better.
Yeah.
Is this? I mean, we watch from afar what's happening in the States. Trump obviously wants to crack down on the border. He's going pretty hard on that. I guess the message what is your message to any Kiwis who might be wanting to travel to the States or come in and out of the States?
So I would just say that they should expect greater scrutiny. They should expect to be, pulled into secondary questioning, possibly, or even denied admission. So, if you're coming to the U.S., just expect that you might be denied admission. I would also advise them to, if they've ever been to the U.S. before, they've ever overstayed a visa, have any criminal issues, they should probably talk to an American immigration lawyer before trying to visit. There are some other tips I can give as well. Like I'd recommend using Signal, downloading that and using that for your messaging, disappearing messages. I would expect that your smartphones and laptops will be searched. So best to leave them at home or use burner phones, or at least if you have to bring them, scrub them of your personal information, scrub your social media. It sounds like I'm talking about authoritarian country, but that's kind of the situation here at the moment. I'd also be really careful in states where cannabis is legal to just stay away from it. There are some minor exceptions in immigration law, but it is still federally illegal, even in the states that it's been legalized. So just be really careful with that. Be careful with getting DUIs, don't drink and drive, just really try to keep your nose clean when you're here. And then also just don't violate your non-immigrant status. Don't overstay, leave before your visa expires, and don't work. And also be careful with volunteering. So if you have a volunteer project, that can also be considered work. I would say talk to an immigration lawyer again about that. And just expect that if you're on a B visa, you may be required to show ties to New Zealand. Do you have a return ticket? Do you have a job in New Zealand? Like that kinds of things.
Apart from all that, welcome to America, Minta.
I know, right?
Hey, appreciate you coming on this morning. Just very quickly, are Sarah's legal troubles over, or does she need, is there going to be a follow-up on this?
No, there's still legal processes that are pending that we'll be handling on our end. I am still really hopeful for all of this to get resolved in her favor.
Appreciate your time. Minta Thorwood with us, lawyer representing Sarah Shaw in Seattle, Washington. Time now is 28 minutes away from 8. Neva with headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. They've been discussing the conflict between Russia and Ukraine following Trump's meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. Other European leaders are also there. Zelensky says there needs to be pressure on Russia to end the war. Trump says substantial progress is being made. Councils say a revamped building consents framework provides better balance. The government's proposing a new liability model that holds parties responsible only for their share of work. It's also allowing councils to voluntarily consolidate their building consent authorities. Local Government New Zealand Vice President Campbell Barry says consents will likely be processed more quickly because councils won't be as risk-averse.
We still want those standards to be held high and expectations to be held high, but it won't be councils and ratepayers at the end when things do go wrong, which is the current case.
A soldier who admitted to espionage has revealed more details about his connections to far-right groups. The court-martial continues at Manawatu's Linton military camp today after he admitted trying to pass on critical and classified information to who he thought was a foreign agent. The soldier had links to the Dominion movement and Action Zealandia, but maintains they were a positive support for him. Open Justice reporter Jeremy Wilkinson says many case details are being kept out of the public eye. He says journalists are being excluded when sensitive information is discussed. An apology from Public Service Minister Judith Collins as teachers prepare to strike over pay. Last week, Collins twice claimed a secondary teacher with a decade's experience earned $147,000, but she's since confirmed just 450 teachers, less than 2% of the workforce, earn that much. The PPTA says most teachers with a decade's experience earn $103,000 a year. Collins says she's sorry for mixing the message. Brewers could soon make beer faster. An Otago University study has discovered playing white noise can reduce the fermentation process by up to 31 hours without significantly affecting the flavour. Fermentation can take on average 5 to 7 days. Associate Professor Graham Ayres says these findings could have a substantial impact on the beer industry.
Time is money, so any time you can shave off a fermentation is good news for brewers.
All trains in the capital will be replaced by buses during off-peak times today due to a union meeting. The Rail and Maritime Transport Union meet annually, and Metlink says it fully supports its union members in attendance. Buses will run on all lines between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, rather an unsettled looking Tuesday ahead of us. Cold air feeding up from the south, bringing some snowfall over the higher passes of the Southland, and for this afternoon, perhaps even up towards the Desert Road as well. We'll find a southerly change moves up through Wellington, giving a pretty windy, wet looking story there. And across that western side of the Northland, showers through the daytime. Well, we'll find that snowfall, though. There are some road snowfall warnings across many of the passes, including the Desert Road this afternoon. We've also got a strong wind watch out for Wellington as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Down south, still some showers pushing through. Still pretty windy around the likes of the Otago Peninsula. Still a bit of snow around first thing, but that should lift as we head through the morning time. It starts off fairly wet through Canterbury. Rain moves northwards. It will become more showery. Still with those snow showers across the Canterbury High Country. The best of the sunshine at the other side of the hills through the western coast. A windy, wet-looking start today here in Wellington. We'll keep hold of those southerly winds through the daytime. That wind watch in force this afternoon. We'll also find showers feeding up this eastern coast, mainly skirting the likes of Napier and pushing through in towards Wairoa. This western side of the Northland, well, that stays pretty showery throughout the day with longer spells of rain from time to time, some heavier falls, perhaps even the risk of some thunder and hail as we head through Tuesday.
You're watching Herald Now. Great to have your company. 23 minutes away from 8 o'clock now. Do get in touch with us. Ryan at nzherald.co.nz is how you do that. We'll have Chris Pink, the Minister for Building, on the show after 8 o'clock, talking about those changes they announced yesterday. Right now, the memoir of former Finance Minister Grant Robertson lands in bookshops today. Not that I'm here to advertise it, but there you go. The Herald this week has revealed excerpts from the book, including details of this disagreement with Chris Hipkins over tax policy. The Labour leader's with us this morning. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Grant will love that. Free plug.
He'll be very happy for the extra promotion, and he didn't even need to come on your show to achieve it, so I'm sure he'll be delighted.
To be fair, he wouldn't come on the show to achieve it. Are you keeping notes, because one day you'll write a book too?
I haven't been as good at keeping notes as I probably should have been, actually. I do wish during that COVID-19 period I'd kept, much more comprehensive notes in particular, but, the memory's still fresh on a lot of issues.
Well, luckily, Robertson did the hard work for you. On capital gains tax, so this is the wealth tax and the capital gains tax, he says you were genuinely open to a wealth tax, were you?
I was open to discussion around tax options when I took over from Jacinda. That's absolutely correct. As we went through the development, I think Grant sort of, chronicles that period reasonably well. There's a few bits he misses out. I mean, it wasn't just me. We had cabinet conversations about it. We had conversations with the Labour Party policy groups, and so we ended up where we did.
But it was your call. I mean, this is the point he makes. He says he was gutted at your call.
Well, the decision not to have a wealth tax in the budget was a cabinet decision. And, my opinion, I'm sure, had some sway at the cabinet table. But it was a cabinet decision.
Of course it does. Once it's a cabinet decision, everyone's kumbaya.
The decision not to have it in the party's manifesto went through the party's policy-making process. So it was a signed-off decision. It wasn't one that I made unilaterally.
So when it comes to your policy this year that you're going to announce later on, are you still genuinely open to a wealth tax, as you were then?
We're working through options at the moment. We have got both of those options, capital gains and a wealth tax, have been on the table. We've been pretty open about the fact that both of those options have been on the table. And by the end of this year, we're going to be able to answer for New Zealanders what changes we would make to the tax system. We'll be able to explain them. We'll be able to say to New Zealanders what the implications are for them. We will have worked through all the detail of that. So I've committed to announcing that by the end of the year.
Will it be tax neutral? Because I mean, the one that Robertson talks about in his book, in terms of the wealth tax, was $3.4 billion from 46,000 people. This is assets more than 10 million. That would get you $20 a week tax cut for your average salary and wage earner. Could you expect to see something similar from a policy you introduce?
Oh, look, I know everyone's speculating on what our tax policy might be, but I'm not announcing that today and not announcing any details around it, like, what it might pay for. So that's all still to come.
Because let's not talk specifics then. The argument is governments need more money because we've got ageing populations, we don't have as many people working paying tax, blah, blah, blah. So we need more taxes. So do we need more taxes to fund government, or do you need to do this because you want to redistribute the tax system and give working people on lower incomes more money?
What we do need to do as a country is make sure that we're investing in the productive economy. So we need to create jobs, because ultimately if you create more jobs and you have fewer people on an unemployment benefit, for example, then that actually reduces government expenditure. If you're spending more money in preventative health care, then you're actually ending up with fewer people in hospital. So I think there are things that we need to do to make sure that the government spending is in the right areas. So there's more work to do in those areas. Tax is only one part of the conversation about all of those things.
Did you see the latest numbers, the manufacturing numbers and the services sector's numbers that have come out today?
I haven't seen those yet. They've just come out today. But
manufacturing was Friday.
Particularly.
Manufacturing was Friday, but for July, July's numbers, we were in positive territory, which is good. That was from Friday. Today's number is still in contraction, but improving almost. We're touching cloth on growth. This has got to be a good thing. We're maybe turning a corner here from a little mid-year slump.
Well, look, we can always live in hope, but I think there's a lot more that we can do as a country to make sure our productive economy is really getting the support that it needs. There's things around power prices that the government can do more about, making sure that we are getting a genuinely competitive electricity market, because that's been one of the things that's been driving manufacturers to the wall. So there's more that government can do to make sure that we are keeping Kiwis in work.
Yeah, they apparently had a bit of a meeting last night at Parliament. Our producers were told, they didn't want to come on and talk about it, but were told that it was Willis, that it was Watts, and Bishop was in the room as well. This is after 6 o'clock last night, having a meeting about gas in particular. Obviously a crucial sector and one that's facing, pretty gigantic price hikes.
Well, one of the reasons it's facing, gigantic price hikes is that we're short of gas, and 2 decades worth of exploration for gas haven't found any commercially viable, discoveries. We've got to double down on renewables, and there's lots of renewable energy options for us, not just solar and wind, but things like geothermal, which can actually help us to keep the price of electricity lower, or get the price of electricity lower, give us a good, secure supply of electricity that will mean that our businesses can thrive.
Fitch came out yesterday and reaffirmed our credit rating. Do you know how much we're spending servicing debt?
I don't have the dollar figures off the top of my head, but that number is still a relatively small percentage of overall government spending.
What is that, the percentage?
Oh, I can't remember, but it's in the single digits.
Come on. You want to be the Prime Minister and you can't tell me what we are spending servicing our massive debt.
Well, if you talk about it in the percentage of government spend, it's in the low single figures. But I don't memorise every.
It's about
$11
billion bucks. Same amount that we spend on defence, on police, on corrections, and they have a warning that if we want to keep that rating, then we need to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. And you have spoken about wanting to spend on this, wanting to spend on that. We're going to bring this back in. Don't worry, we'll look after the nurses, we'll look after the teachers, we'll look after everybody. At what cost?
Well, look, we're going to set out a fiscal plan before the election that shows how we will balance the books. Bearing in mind Nicola Willis hasn't yet done that. Despite 2 years of hot air, the books are still in deficit and there's not a surplus in sight. Government borrowing is increasing under this government, not decreasing. So we'll set out a plan that will show how we will balance the government's books, because it is important that governments do that.
Would you get back to surplus quicker, you reckon?
Oh, look, I've said that we'll set out a plan that shows how we will balance the government's books. One thing I would say on debt, though, Ryan, is just like anybody buying a house knows, if you're buying new assets, borrowing money that mean you pay for the value of those assets over their lifetime is not a bad thing for government to do.
No, totally.
If we're going to fix our infrastructure problem, we're going to have to borrow money to do that so that we can pay off that infrastructure over the life of it. And we need to be mature in our conversation about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, but there's a difference between paying debt on a house and paying debt on a Ferrari, right?
Well, quite right. But also there's a difference between paying debt on keeping people in work building infrastructure or paying them a job seeker benefit, which this government are doing a lot more of. If we were actually building things, we'd be paying fewer people on the job seeker benefit.
I agree with you. But interestingly enough, I went and had a look this morning at the report from Kāinga Ora when they were reviewing all of the housing projects that you guys had going. 215 of them didn't stack up financially or were actually in the wrong places. I mean, should we be, just for the sake of keeping chippies and builders in work, should we be funding and building houses in places that people actually don't need to live or aren't going to live?
Well, if you're talking about that in the context of, I think it was about 13,000 extra houses that we had built by the time we left government, and several thousand more have been completed since we left government. If you're talking about a couple of hundred of them, then of course we can always make sure that we're doing better. But we've built thousands and thousands of houses. In addition to homing people, that also created jobs in the meantime, and a lot of that's slowing down significantly. I think for every 7 houses that we were building, the current government are building 1, most of them which are the remnants of the build program that we had underway.
All right. We'll leave it there because I've run over time. I appreciate you coming on this morning as always. Chris Hipkins, the Labour leader from Wellington. 13 away from 8. Next, Garth Bray with business news, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. Then after 8 o'clock, Building and Construction Minister Chris Penk on the overhaul to the building rules. Straight ahead.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivisions with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Welcome back. 11 minutes away from 8 now. Let's check in with Garth. It's business time, and we do this with 2 degrees every day. Auckland Council plans to downzone 12,000 properties and shift development to high-rise apartments. This is around train stations where everybody will be piling out from work. Business Desk, Garth Bray with me now. Hey, Garth.
Hey, Ryan.
So, government's forcing some changes, but then councils can go back and get some exemptions. Is this what's going on here?
Yeah, we can get into some real alphabet spaghetti here if we want to with Plan Change 78, which our infrastructure editor, Ollie Lewis, says stay away from. It's very complicated. But the bottom line is we've got a couple of things going on here. We've got effectively since the 2023 floods and so on, a realisation that we are building things in the wrong place, regardless of whether we need to keep those chippies and electricians busy, as you were saying before. And so they're looking at a downzoning there for coastal erosion, for flooding, for inundation, for those kinds of risks as well. And they're also looking at complying with some other parts of government policy around how to intensify Auckland and not do it by building a stack of 3-storey developments right next door. So if you were planning to do one of those and overshadow your neighbour, bad luck. If you were planning on not having one of those, good news. What they're looking at, though, is really intensifying around those rail corridors, in particular the train stations in Auckland, where we've just spent billions of dollars connecting the City Rail link, which will open next year, hopefully, Mangawhau, Kingsland, and I think out to Morningside. And they're talking about at least 15-storey apartment developments around there, plus a stack around the bus lanes, 18 high-frequency areas. So you're going to see a real push to try and bring people into the city and around those areas.
And Kingsland, Simon Wilson's got a good story in the Herald this morning about Kingsland, the special character areas. Basically, see ya for most of it. And you can build your,
You'll have a drone eye view of Eden Park. Let's just put it that way. And this is something ACT were pushing for about 4 years. So a bit of a win probably for them on this. And it all goes to a planning committee meeting on Thursday.
Brilliant.
So we'll see. Down the track, there'll be public submissions. And
Golden Visa advisors are getting ready to add a buy a home to their pitch because, of course, in a couple of weeks, Nicola will have spoke to Bloomberg about this. We'll get a decision from Cabinet on foreign buyers ban.
Again, it all seems to take a long time. They're very much expecting a $5 million threshold to kick in, and they're not making too many big bones about that. It's sort of probably about 1% of the properties that are conveyanced in any given year. And it's basically, they're saying, hey, it's great, it doesn't make it easier, it doesn't cut people out of the ability to buy a home in their neighbourhood, because if you're probably able to afford $5 million, it's, you'll be fine in that area. But interesting, some of the advisors are saying, hey, look, this isn't such a big deal for our clients, but some of the VC people that are seeing the money coming in from that active investor program are saying this will be a really big deal, because if you're putting $5 to $10 million into a country, even if you're only parking it in a fund, as we sort of found out some of them are doing, being told, hey, you're going to have to Airbnb your family is probably not exactly no mai haramai. It's more like just give us your cash and see you later.
Sleep on the floor.
So that's possibly seen as a bit of a positive. We've got an update there, about $200 million now approved under committed investments under the application.
Okay.
So
and that's only we're talking months, aren't we? It's like 3, 4, must be 4 months now.
So obviously that paperwork's moving fast enough, but some other isn't quite.
No, good point. Right, Contact out yesterday. Contact's boss having a spray at red tape? What's this all about?
This is Mike Fuge, boss of Contact. He's been on record before saying he's frustrated at the rate of their ability to get consents for a quite a big wind farm development down in the Southland on the Jedburgh Plateau. That was about 300 megawatts worth. So, I mean, they had a good result yesterday. I think $331 million increase, 13% lift in net profit on the back of a lot of geothermal. They've brought a fair bit of that on, and also they've got some gas capacity that they were able to release, and that's obviously, we know that's worth a whole lot at the moment.
Is the government sorting out the consenting stuff? They keep telling us they are.
Wow. He's saying, well, look, we've gone for fast track on a project. It's been 120 days to get through that. Now it's sitting on a minister's desk. 2 very important bits of paper we've had to shuffle. They're there for another 30 days. And this is the quote he gave our energy correspondent. They, the politicians, they're trying to unjam this country. There are elements in the bureaucracy who are doing their damnedest to slow them down. So he's trying to pick favourites here because he knows those ministers are looking at a big change that might actually whack some of the gentiles.
Bureaucrats.
But he's poking away at the bureaucrats saying, hey, come on,
always the bureaucrats.
Move it forward, please, for us guys.
That's why we've got to get rid of them.
I guess they're saying, hey, leave it to us and we'll build this. They've got $1 billion worth of new generation planned in the next year or so, so let us get on with it. Don't
get out of our way.
But also
unblock.
Don't break us up.
Well, yeah, that too. Hey, appreciate your time, Garth.
Cool.
Garth Bray, Business Desk. Thanks to our partners, 2 degrees. Time now 6 away from 8. A proposed bylaw that aims to restrict public access to a small corner in the far south of the North Island has upset locals and prompted a campaign against it. Submissions closed today on South Wairarapa District Council's Paper Road Access Bylaw, which it says is an attempt to stamp out vandalism and damage to adjacent Māori land. Beautiful part of New Zealand, probably a couple of hours from, once you get all the way over there from Wellington. Absolutely stunning coastline. But the problem is that the roads have been damaged and there's vandalism taking place, so council wants to do something about it. Andy McDonald is a wildlife photographer and campaigner. He is against this and joins us now. Hey, Andy.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just tell us, for people who haven't been here, we're looking at the photos, what's it like?
It's unreal. It's like nowhere else in New Zealand. It's this dramatic sort of mountainscape that just smashes right into the sea. It's full of amazing wildlife, rare plants, geckos, all sorts of things like that.
And there's very few annoying people there too. That's the other benefit of this place.
Yeah, it's very remote. It takes a lot of effort to get there. So yeah, it's very unspoiled.
Now, council says they're responding to the issues raised by local Māori and iwi about ongoing damage to the land, the paper road, the impact it's had on the area, it's of cultural importance. Can you understand why they're doing this?
Oh, absolutely. I totally understand the issues that the Hapu have raised, but the issue is more their solution is to basically block everyone out when it's very clear that they've identified that it's four-wheel drive users who have, or bad four-wheel drive users who have caused the damage. So yeah, that's kind of the big problem here.
So what are they doing? Burnouts? I don't know.
So, well, yeah, I think there's always a rogue element of like any community, but it seems that the public road has got quite potholed, and then what they've done is they have gone over and around onto the private land, and because it becomes a full path, and then that becomes potholed. So that's basically damaged the private land. But there's heaps of solutions to that. I mean, we could even just look at fixing the paper road so that that becomes more drivable than the private land.
Okay, so that's the problem. The best way is the private way. And you can understand why people get peeved about that. What are some other solutions? I mean, you can't really. I mean, what do you put a gate, a big gate up, and it'll say only certain people can unlock it? But then, how does that work?
Well, you can't really put a lock gate on a paper road. That's illegal. So that's one of the issues. I mean, the private landowners already have the ability to trespass people or try and get people charged for willful damage on their land. If they pass this bylaw in the state that they proposed it, I don't think that would change. And unless they're suggesting that the council is going to become an enforcement agency for private land, then I'm not sure exactly what they're planning to change.
Yeah. So what is your big concern here? Is it that this is sort of a test case, and once you start, going down this road, then, or not going down this road, then you won't be going down many others either?
The big issue here is a public road, so it's owned by all New Zealanders. It's not owned by anyone in particular. It's not part of the private land that's adjacent to it, and it provides the only really feasible access to a particular dock reserve that's part of the Aorangi Forest Park. And as soon as you allow the council to illegally block a public road from all access, you basically just start on a slippery slope where the council starts to, or councils all around the country can just start blocking people from land that we all own.
Interesting stuff, Andy. Appreciate your time this morning. Andy McDonald, wildlife photographer and campaigner, talking to us about that issue in Wairarapa. These submissions, by the way, close today. Right, incredible footage is circulating of the moment a light plane makes an emergency landing on a golf course in Sydney. And it's not just the footage that you're watching, it's the sound that this thing makes. Take a look.
Oh, shit. Holy crap, he's making emergency landing.
Yeah, absolutely crazy to watch that, and the stunned people. You know, there was some having a nice Chardonnay with lunch, some were playing golf, absolutely in shock. Pilot instructor and a student, both believed to be in their 50s, were in the plane when this happened. They suffered minor injuries in the crash. They are A-OK. Let's take a look at that one more time. It's just unreal.
Oh, shit. Holy crap, he's making emergency landing.
Safe to say his training is ongoing. Right, it's 8 o'clock. Good morning, welcome to Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. Tuesday, the 19th of August, great to have your company. Coming up on the show this hour, the government's planning the biggest shake-up to our building consent laws in more than 20 years. The minister is here fronting up. What does it mean if your roof caves in? You're never too young to start. The Napier 7-year-old who's opened his own burger shop, maybe with a little bit of help from Dad. And young tourists have voted New Zealand their favourite adventure tourism spot. Our secret, we're scary, but we're also pretty safe. Lorna Riley is here with Travel Tuesday. First, let's get to news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. They've been discussing the conflict between Russia and Ukraine following Trump's meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. Other European leaders are also there. Zelensky says there needs to be pressure on Russia to end the war. Trump says substantial progress is being made. Councils say a revamped building consents framework provides better balance. The government's proposing a new liability model that holds parties responsible only for their share of work. It's also allowing councils to voluntarily consolidate their building consent authorities. Local Government New Zealand Vice President Campbell Barry says consents will likely be processed more quickly because councils won't be as risk-averse.
We still want those standards to be held high and expectations to be held high, but it won't be councils and ratepayers at the end when things do go wrong, which is the current case.
A soldier who admitted to espionage has revealed more details about his connections to far-right groups. The court-martial continues at Manawatu's Linton military camp today after he admitted trying to pass on critical and classified information to who he thought was a foreign agent. The soldier had links to the Dominion movement and Action Zealandia, but maintains they were a positive support for him. Open Justice reporter Jeremy Wilkinson says many case details are being kept out of the public eye. He says journalists are being excluded when sensitive information is discussed. An apology from Public Service Minister Judith Collins as teachers prepare to strike over pay. Last week, Collins twice claimed a secondary teacher with a decade's experience earned $147,000, but she's since confirmed just 450 teachers, less than 2% of the workforce, earn that much. The PPTA says most teachers with a decade's experience earn $103,000 a year. Collins said she's sorry for mixing the message. Brewers could soon make beer faster. An Otago University study has discovered playing white noise can reduce the fermentation process by up to 31 hours without significantly affecting the flavour. Fermentation can take on average 5 to 7 days. Associate Professor Graham Ayres says these findings could have a substantial impact on the beer industry.
Time is money, so any time you can shave off a fermentation is good news for brewers.
All trains in the capital will be replaced by buses during off-peak times today due to a union meeting. The Rail and Maritime Transport Union meet annually, and Metlink says it fully supports its union members in attendance. Buses will run on all lines between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, Auckland FC have signed 9-cap all-white Ollie Sale. The 29-year-old goalkeeper replaces Alex Paulson, who's headed back to Bournemouth. Australian driver Oscar Piastri will have a grandstand named after him at the Albert Park Formula One circuit in Melbourne next March. Gael Monfils will return to Auckland as the 38-year-old looks to defend his ASB Classic tennis title in January. Finn Fisher-Black and Dion Smith have been selected to ride the Vuelta a España Grand Cycling Tour starting Sunday morning.
It is 4 minutes after 8. You're watching Herald Now. Great to have your company this morning. Let's go back to Washington very briefly. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says a trilateral meeting between Ukraine, the US and Russia is the next step. This comes after, of course, in Alaska at the weekend we had Trump meeting Putin. Now we've had Zelensky meeting Trump at the White House. He is calling this idea of a US-backed security guarantee a historic step forward. And we have a photo of the leaders, as well, actually it's some video of them. So this is what I'm referring to as the gaggle of Europeans who've come along for the meeting. Zelensky in the middle there, von der Leyen on your left, there's Starmer, there's Rutte, Merz of Germany, and a couple of others. Trump's there, obviously in the middle. Let's have a listen to what Donald Trump has had to say.
The Alaska summit reinforced my belief that while difficult, peace is within reach, and I believe that in a very significant step, President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is one of the key points that we need to consider.
So, I mean, it is a big deal if you can get all of the Europeans in the room saying, yep, we will, all agree to that this is going to be your line of your DMZ, for want of a better term, like North-South Korea. This is going to be your DMZ. These are your bits of territory. And any time you cross that line, you don't just mess with us, but you mess with Trump and you mess with the US military. That is hugely significant. Hasn't been agreed to yet, of course. Putin's apparently open to it, but hey, at least they're in the room talking. Here's weather in New Zealand.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, rather an unsettled looking Tuesday ahead of us. Cold air feeding up from the south, bringing some snowfall over the higher passes of the South Island, and for this afternoon, perhaps even out towards the Desert Road as well. We'll find a southerly change moves up through Wellington, giving a pretty windy, wet looking story there. And across that western side of the North Island, showers through the daytime. Where we'll find that snowfall, though, there are some road snowfall warnings across many of the passes, including the Desert Road this afternoon. We've also got a strong wind watch out for Wellington as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Down south, still some showers that push in through, still pretty windy around the likes of the Otago Peninsula. Still a bit of snow around first thing, but that should lift as we head through the morning time. It starts off fairly wet through Canterbury. Rain moves northwards. It will become more showery. Still with those snow showers across the Canterbury High Country. The best of the sunshine at the other side of the hills through the western coast. A windy, wet-looking start today here in Wellington. We'll keep hold of those southerly winds through the daytime. That wind watch in force this afternoon. We'll also find showers feeding up this eastern coast, mainly skirting the likes of Napier and pushing through in towards Wairoa. This western side of the North Line, well, that stays pretty showery throughout the day with longer spells of rain from time to time, some heavier falls, perhaps even the risk of some thunder and hail as we head through Tuesday.
8 after 8 now. The government's announced the biggest overhaul of the country's building consent system since 2004. Under the plans, councils will be able to consolidate their consenting authorities. It's a voluntary thing. Bring in a new liability model that the government says will reduce the burden on ratepayers because it's proportional. So whatever the builder cocks up, the builder will pay for, that sort of thing. Whatever the designer cocks up, the designer pays for. Chris Pink, Building and Construction Minister, with us live. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
The Aussies did proportional liability back in the 90s, no-brainer, but they also brought in mandatory industry-backed insurance, for want of a better term. When are you going to do that?
Well, we're having that conversation now. So the point of yesterday's announcement was to give certainty to all concerned, including in the sector, that we're going with the proportionate liability, which you've described very well. So now we've got the ability to lock down the detail of what those consumer protection measures might be. And yes, it could be exactly the same as in Australia, or it could be slightly different. Bearing in mind, of course, there are already some of these in place or available on a non-mandatory basis in New Zealand already.
Yes. And people have the choice, right? They can go, I'm going to go with a certified master builder and get an industry-backed guarantee. And if my builder goes belly up, I know that another of their builders will step in and do the work and it will be paid for. That's a choice that you can make. Will you take that choice away so that every builder must do it?
Well, potentially, but and I should note, for the sake of balance, there's also the Certified Builders Halo scheme, which is an equivalent, and then you've got the group home builders who have something else at their group franchise level, and then again you've also got professional indemnity insurance for engineers and architects. So look, it might be that we do that, or it might be that we say it's compulsory except on an opt-out basis if you've got informed consent, so that we can be confident that people are making a decision that is right for them, knowing at least what they're signing up for and accepting the risk if they're up for that.
Why wouldn't you make it compulsory? Is it because that will be more expensive and some people might want to take the risk but pay less?
Yeah, there's that philosophical question, I suppose, about the extent to which we allow people to take risk and accept the consequences of that. But it also might be that we go compulsory with that private sector model available. Part of it is, though, that we have an insurance sector that, rightly wants to understand what would be in it for them and what, their risk appetite is something we need to understand before we commit to that. So it's a bit chicken and egg, but we have to make the big picture decision that we announced yesterday, that such things will be possible with the move from joint and several liability to proportionate liability, such that we can now have those conversations in the detail and get that locked down.
Who's pushing back, Minister, on that? Who is pushing for choice, potentially more dangerous, cheaper choice? Is it the ACT Party? Because the industry, I've spoken to certified builders this morning and they say, bring on mandatory.
Yeah, well, no one's pushing back per se. The government as a whole will reach a decision that's sensible.
So it's just a philosophical argument, basically, that you're having between the three parties about that.
Well, there's no argument other than the fact we'll have a discussion, but Cabinet was very happy with the overall direction that we go from joint and several to proportionate liability, and now we'll have a conversation, and I'm continuing to have that conversation, including yesterday following the announcement with the sector, including the insurers, about what that looks like. So I'll make a recommendation and then we'll make a joint government decision together that I'm sure we can all agree on.
Your claim, for our viewers watching at home, your claim that this is going to bring down the cost of building, how could you say that when, the guarantee for an average sized new build, value $480,000, adds approximately $1,500 to the total cost of a build because they need to insure themselves?
Yeah, well, that's right. To the extent that people have already got these measures in place already, then there will be no extra cost. And so if there's a marginal addition for those that don't currently have that protection, yes, again, there's a trade-off, as you've already alluded to, which is that philosophical question we asked: do we make people pay for something that's in their own best interests, to the extent that the council wouldn't be available and the ratepayer wouldn't be available to stump up in the event of a cock-up, as you've said. So, that's the kind of decision that we're weighing. These are not costless decisions. So the question is really, where do you add the cost or or require people to have additional costs, we might not do that at all. We might just say, let the market decide, let the consumer decide. But given that homeowners have a large asset that's at stake for them, it's part of their financial future as well as decisions that they make for their family, then it's right to take the time that we need to make sure we get that decision right for all concerned. All right, Minister, you're either an incredibly skilled driver or someone is driving you, because you haven't looked at the road and I can tell the car's moving. I'd like to say I'm a skilled driver, but in any case, I'm not driving. Someone who is skilled is doing that task. All right, we'll leave you to it. Minister, appreciate your time this morning. Chris Pink, Building and Construction. The Aratiri Inter-Islanders troubled ferry the Inter-Islanders troubled ferry, we all know it, has completed its final voyage. In its 26 years of service, the ferry made about 53,000 crossings, carried more than 5 million passengers, 1.5 million passenger vehicles, and more than 500,000 trucks. Its departure leaves only 2 ferries in the fleet. The Herald's Wellington reporter Ethan Manera was on board for the final sailing.
We're here on the Inter-Islander Aratiri Ferry, which is currently making its last ever sailing across the Cook Strait after 26 years in service. The ship needs to be retired to make way for the redevelopment of Picton Wharf, which will allow for the 2 new rail ferries due for arrival in New Zealand in 2029. The booked out Picton to Wellington sailing today is full of former ferry workers and ship enthusiasts who bought a ticket to be part of this historic occasion.
Oh, well, it's been a sad feeling, but at the same time, it's been a good one,
I suppose it's a little bit bittersweet. This ship has been our home for a lot of us for quite many years.
Part of history, really. Yeah, part of history of seeing after 26 years of crossing the Cook Strait, it's finally going.
And I've just come off leave to take a day just to come over here for the last voyage of the ship and say goodbye to the old girl that I've worked on for many, many years.
That was the Aratiri, and can I just say, from one ferry to another, haere. 8:15. You can never start too young. 7-year-old Jet Simpson has gone from running an imaginary restaurant in his toy kitchen at home to running a legitimate burger joint every Friday, maybe with a little bit of help from Dad. This is in Hawke's Bay. Joining us is Hawhaela Melo, the Hawke's Bay Today reporter, who's with us live this morning. Nice to see you again, Hawhaela.
Nice to see you, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, that's such a cool story. Like the 7-year-old boy is Jet Simpson. He runs a pretend restaurant in his bedroom. He has like a toy kitchen and also a hand-drawn menu, a table where he put flowers on it. So that's how it started, right? He even designed a logo for Jet's Burger Shop and put a sign on his bedroom door. And one evening he was talking to his family and talking to his dad, who owns a real-life cafe in Napier. And Jet asked if his burger shop could be real. So his father backed the idea. And on Friday, they launched Jet's Burger as a pop-up restaurant inside the cafe, now running every Friday. On launch day, almost 150 people attended. It was really busy. It reached the full capacity of the cafe. And I was there myself to have a chat with Jet. And he was really excited. He told me he was feeling good and happy about having his, dream come true. And he was helping out with a few tasks like clearing empty plates and handing out some collectible cards that he created from his own food-themed drawings. So the kids can come every week and collect that. And that's his idea. How clever is that, eh?
So cool. Most importantly, what do the burgers taste like?
So to be honest, I didn't have a try on the burger. What? It was so busy. But they have a full menu with a lot of kinds of burgers. So fish burger, beef burger, pork burger, and of course it's for kids. So we must have chicken nuggets, onion rings, desserts, this kind of thing. And all the artwork that you see, the menu fonts, the logo, everything is created by Jet. So that's all of him.
That's so cool. Second most important question after how do the burgers taste is he making a profit?
Yeah, so I asked the dad about that. So of course, Jet is not getting his young boy, and Brad, his father, said that he won't have like a full-time job or anything like that, but he can show up whenever he wants, and he really wants to. And he is getting some royalties from his work, and his parents are putting that into his savings. So yes.
Very cool. Another great story from you, Hafa'ela. Lovely to see you again, and we'll see you again soon.
See ya. Thank you, Ryan.
Bye-bye. That's Hafa'ela Melo with us, Hawke's Bay Today reporter. It is with Jet. Go and check it out on a Friday night. Apparently it's only on a Friday if you want to go and see Jet. Next, our panel gets to grips with the big stories of the day, and then after 8:30, one of the world's great architectural marvels is finally going to be finished. We'll tell you where it is.
Speaker to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Welcome back. It is 8:20 and you're watching Herald Now. It's time for our panel. Deborah Peed, Peed PR founder, and Rawdon Christie, former broadcaster and, of course, real estate agent. Welcome back, guys.
Hello. Morena.
Good to see you. Hey, lots to talk about this morning, so let's crack into it. We've spoken about Trikafta. Just this amazing, we talk a lot and you get stories in the media about miracle wonder drugs and stuff. This is one that actually works and adds decades to people's lives. And yet, according to Cystic Fibrosis New Zealand, for 2 to 5-year-olds, we're not funding it basically because it's a money thing, Deborah.
Yeah, look, I know how important this drug is. Pete worked with Cystic Fibrosis and Lisa on the first round and helping to get this drug funded. So it's a lifesaver for people that suffer. But access to drugs should not depend on your passport or your postcode. And there's more than 40 countries that have this drug available for under 6-year-olds. So I wonder why we're dragging the chain on this. It feels like a bureaucracy gone a little bit mad, too much administration. We know it works. And people shouldn't have to make heartbreaking decisions to travel to other countries, to leave their friends, family and network to ensure the health of their children.
I thought, thank goodness that they can.
get to another country which is relatively easy to get to, because otherwise where are your options? But I think if you're really, I feel for Pharmac slightly here, having spent 15 years as a journalist in New Zealand trying to condemn them for their decision making when it didn't work for what I felt for Kiwis. They're under pretty strict budget guidelines. However, if you turn the principle around of saving lives, and it's not many lives, and giving a lifestyle too, and therefore boosting economy and saving further costs down the line, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
So
the lung transplants that they're having to do, they're just on the decline.
I wish we took that attitude to so many more medical situations. If you just put more testing or more preventative or even something like Trikafta in at the bottom end, you're going to see far better results for us economically as a country at the top end.
Lisa was saying, I thought the interesting thing Lisa said was that they've got to constantly justify it. It's a cost-benefit analysis. And she said you can't actually do the testing on a 2-year-old that that will give you the analysis. You can't actually measure the lung capacity that you need to that will give you those numbers. You just have to go on what other jurisdictions have done. So it can't always be a numbers thing, But yeah, it must be incredible.
I think you could hazard a guess that if it's working for a 6 to 8 year old, it's probably going to do some good for a 2-year-old.
So.
And if it's working in other countries, come on, do we really need to retest everything again?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see, we just had the story of this wee boy, 7-year-old from Napier, who's just started his very first burger joint. Maybe he's had some help from Dad. It's held in Dad's restaurant, but industrious, did his own logos, everything. Pretty cool story, hey?
Gee, they start saving early for that deposit for a house now, don't they? 7-year-old in the salt mines. But I love this. I was at the Cuisine Restaurant Awards last night, and the winner, Casey MacDonald from Craigie Range in Hawke's Bay, he worked in a fish and chip shop when he was 12, and now he is the chef of the year. And so, let's hope there's some bright beginnings or bright future for this young chap. But I love that story.
When I first saw the story, I thought, hold on, Dad's opened a restaurant for her kid. For his kid, this is slightly indulgent. Then I read the full story and worked out it was a corner of Dad's restaurant. And then I was sad enough to get the picture of. I thought the fact they're using all his artwork is genius. And the menu looks amazing.
Looks cool, eh?
So much so that I was sort of zooming in to find out how much a burger cost. $22.
I love it.
Yeah, brilliant story.
But 2 weeks ago, they were saying kids can't collect eggs on farms, and now we've got a kid flipping burgers. So, where's the balance here? But I love the story, and we should put our kids to work earlier.
Nothing like child labour. Well, this is industrious from him, really, isn't it? It's not just working. It's starting an enterprise.
And if ever you saw an example of a parent saying, "Hold on, you've got a bit of a passion here. I'm going to do what I can to help you." It's you're right, Deborah. Where's this guy going to end up? Where's this youngster going to end up?
Yeah, love it.
It's what good parents do, isn't it? I can remember. Well, it wasn't a business, but Mum, helping with the paper round. She made us get a paper round at the age of 9. But then she was out there with a backpack, delivering them along with us. That's what you do.
Absolutely. I worked behind the till in my dad's shop when I was younger. So said, family has to be on the till. Family has to be on the till. I couldn't even count at the time, but there was family on the till.
My dad was an orthodontist, so we used to help with the drill. It was fine.
Hey, Cape Palliser. Have you been to Cape Palliser before?
It's beautiful.
Beautiful part of New Zealand. It's actually really close to Wellington. A lot of people don't even really know it's there. A couple of hours from Wellington. But the road is getting destroyed by 4-wheel drives. There's vandalism that's going on. It's a paper road, and the council, here's some pictures of it. Council wants to block the road to protect the land. But then you've got, we had a photographer on today saying, this is a public paper road. You can't bloody well put a fence up. And it gives us access to a natural resource, to a national park. You can't do that. What do you reckon?
Look, I have some sympathy for the local hapu here because the road and the area is being vandalised. But I think council is just abandoning their responsibilities. If this road was into Queenstown or Piha, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I think the council needs to build some resilience into the roading infrastructure, education, and support the locals. We can't isolate these communities by closing a road.
Yeah, we're going to agree on everything today.
That's okay.
If the problem is the vandalism, deal with it. And if it involves possibly having to go through some sort of relatively expensive fencing exercise, then consider that. But you don't just shut the road. I think in New Zealand we have, maybe this is from back in the day of being from the UK, where public access to space is a huge thing, you know, footpaths across farms, etc. So I do genuinely think we should do everything we possibly can to keep public access to beautiful places.
Yeah, keep it open.
And otherwise, we're going to be denied even viewing these gorgeous places. And we are a nation of trampers. We like to get out and hike and explore the country. So we certainly need to keep these open.
Yeah, and keep the roads workable and usable too. Appreciate you guys coming in this one. It's fine to agree on things sometimes. We don't always have to, you know, butt heads.
Well, it's because we're all right about everything.
100%.
Appreciate your time. Deborah Peed, PPR founder, and Rawdon Christie, former broadcaster and real estate agent. Speaking of agreeing and not butting heads this time round, Trump and Zelensky in the White House. Remember last time it was shouting and screaming. This time it was smiles. Peace talks have been ongoing. Fighting is continuing in Ukraine, of course. 2 Russian soldiers have been killed in what's being reported as a record-breaking long-distance sniper shot. The pair were targeted from a distance of, wait for it, 4 kilometres, using Ukraine's domestically produced Ghost rifle. This is according to the Kiev Post. The following footage shows the moment the shots were fired.
Піднімаю вище, занижаю кулі. Постріл. Давай, скоро небо може бути грязне. Время. Ще 2 кабачка. Есть.
Pretty incredible. The record-breaking shot occurred last Thursday using artificial intelligence and the guidance of a drone. A precise shot from 4 kilometres away. For reference, the distance between Auckland's Sky Tower and Eden Park is 3.3 kilometres. Right, it is 8:30. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. They've been discussing the conflict between Russia and Ukraine following Trump's meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. Other European leaders are also there. Zelensky says there needs to be pressure on Russia to end the war. Trump says substantial progress is being made. Councils say a revamped building consents framework provides better balance. The government's proposing a new liability model that holds parties responsible only for their share of work. It's also allowing councils to voluntarily consolidate their building consent authorities. Local Government New Zealand Vice President Campbell Barry says consents will likely be processed more quickly because councils won't be as risk-averse.
We still want those standards to be held high and expectations to be held high, but it won't be councils and ratepayers at the end when things do go wrong, which is the current case.
A soldier who admitted to espionage has revealed more details about his connections to far-right groups. The court-martial continues at Manawatu's Linton military camp today after he admitted trying to pass on critical and classified information to who he thought was a foreign agent. The soldier had links to the Dominion movement and Action Zealandia, but maintains they were a positive support for him. Open Justice reporter Jeremy Wilkinson says many case details are being kept out of the public eye. He says journalists are being excluded when sensitive information is discussed. An apology from Public Service Minister Judith Collins as teachers prepare to strike over pay. Last week, Collins twice claimed a secondary teacher with a decade's experience earned $147,000, but she's since confirmed just 450 teachers, less than 2% of the workforce, earn that much. The PPTA says most teachers with a decade's experience earn $103,000 a year. Collins said she's sorry for mixing the message. Brewers could soon make beer faster. An Otago University study has discovered playing white noise can reduce the fermentation process by up to 31 hours without significantly affecting the flavour. Fermentation can take on average 5 to 7 days. Associate Professor Graham Ayres says these findings could have a substantial impact on the beer industry.
time is money, so any time you can shave off a fermentation is good news for brewers.
All trains in the capital will be replaced by buses during off-peak times today due to a union meeting. The Rail and Maritime Transport Union meet annually, and Metlink says it fully supports its union members in attendance. Buses will run on all lines between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, Auckland FC have signed 9-cap all-white Ollie Sale. The 29-year-old goalkeeper replaces Alex Paulson, who's headed back to Bournemouth. Australian driver Oscar Piastri will have a grandstand named after him at the Albert Park Formula One circuit in Melbourne next March. Gael Monfils will return to Auckland as the 38-year-old looks to defend his ASB Classic tennis title in January. Finn Fisher-Black and Dion Smith have been selected to ride the Vuelta a España Grand Cycling Tour starting Sunday morning.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, rather an unsettled looking Tuesday ahead of us. Cold air feeding up from the south, bringing some snowfall over the higher passes of the Southland, and for this afternoon, perhaps even up towards the Desert Road as well. We'll find a southerly change moves up through Wellington, giving a pretty windy, wet-looking story there. And across that western side of the Northland, showers through the daytime. Where we'll find that snowfall, though, there are some road snowfall warnings across many of the passes, including the Desert Road this afternoon. We've also got a strong wind watch out for Wellington as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Down south, still some showers pushing through, still pretty windy around the likes of the Otago Peninsula. Still a bit of snow around first thing, but that should lift as we head through the morning time. It starts off fairly wet through Canterbury. Rain moves northwards. It will become more showery. Still with those snow showers across the Canterbury High Country. The best of the sunshine at the other side of the hills through the western coast. A windy, wet-looking start today here in Wellington. We'll keep hold of those southerly winds through the daytime. That wind watch in force this afternoon. We'll also find showers feeding up this eastern coast, mainly skirting the likes of Napier and pushing through in towards Wairoa. This western side of the Northland, well, that stays pretty showery throughout the day with longer spells of rain from time to time, some heavier falls, perhaps even the risk of some thunder and hail as we head through Tuesday.
Just gone 26 away from 9, time to talk tech thanks to our partners Noel Leeming. Under 16s in Australia will be banned from all social media platforms from December, only 4 months away from now. Speaking at a tech leaders forum over the weekend, the New South Wales Senator David Shoebridge criticised the government's approach. He describes it as a, quote, mad political rush, and he predicts the rollout of the bill would be an ongoing disaster. Host of Business of Tech podcast, Peter Griffin, was in Australia for the forum and he's with us now. Hey, Peter.
Morning, Ryan.
Good to see you. So pretty scathing assessment there. Do you think he's got a point?
I think he does have a point. Look, we're 4 months away now from the Australians doing a social experiment that hasn't been done on a national scale anywhere in the world. So, you know, it's aimed at under 16s, but every single Australian will now have to verify their age. And the technology that they will use to do that hasn't been decided on, but the government has been trialing age verification technology, everything from photo ID checks to face scanning age estimation tools. And what they've come up with in the test so far is that with about 85% accuracy, they can gauge someone's age with a range of plus or minus 18 months, which is not very inspiring. So if you're 16, you know, they could detect you as a 14-year-old or as an 18-year-old. So that's potentially millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people that they'll get wrong. So a lot of the tech leaders I was talking to, as parents, they like the idea of this. And this is hugely popular in Australia. It has almost overwhelming support politically. The Greens are the only ones who have opposed this legislation. 77% of parents like it. But the tech people I was talking to said it's a disaster in terms of how to implement this in a reliable way that protects people's privacy and is not going to cost the government a lot of money to run. So I can't see this happening in December. I think they're going to have to defer it into next year.
Yeah, I just find socially, this is not a tech question, Peter, but socially, It's very hard to verify a child's age. We don't want them going on social media because it's really harmful. We all know that. Why don't parents just not buy their kids a smartphone until they're 16, 17, or give them an old school phone that doesn't allow them to go on social media?
I totally agree. I mean, as David Shoebridge put it, philosophically, he said it's like telling kids you can't have any junk food, you can't have any McDonald's up till age 16, then fill your boots. And we know when you prohibit someone from having something, then they'll go nuts when they do have it. So, the answer really is parents, having meaningful input into the lives of the minors they are responsible for, and being more engaged in their online activity. And there's parental controls, there's filtering software, there are group apps where you can join in with your kids and at least have a look at what they're doing. So, making them digitally literate as 10-year-olds, as 12-year-olds, so that when they go into the digital world, they're savvy about it. So I think that is the answer, and maybe that's where we'll end up. And David Shoebridge pointed out there will be unintended consequences. We've already seen in the UK where they've introduced some age verification. The use of virtual private networks has gone through the roof. So you'll get a lot of Aussie kids who are basically looking as though they're coming into Facebook or YouTube from the US to try and get around these restrictions.
Yeah, the same thing, I lived in China for a while. You're not allowed to go on Facebook in China, but everyone has got a VPN. You know what I mean? Kids are smart.
Great firewall.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Peter, we'll leave it there. 4 months, the countdown's on for them to find a solution. Appreciate your time this morning. Peter Griffin, host of Business of Tech podcast out of Wellington Forest this morning. And that is thanks to our partners, Noel Leeming. Time to talk travel now. Lorna Riley, Trip Notes podcast host, is with us. It's one of the most famous churches in the world, and now finally, this church that you may be familiar with in Barcelona is being finished. Let's check in with Lorna. Lorna, what church are we talking about?
Well, you used the word familiar. That's a bit of a clue. It is, of course, the Sagrada Familia. Now, this has not been a quick build. If you've ever been to Barcelona, you'll know the masterpiece that was started by Gaudi in 1882. So now, more than 140 years later, we've got a finish date, which is really exciting. Before then, actually next month, it is set to become the biggest building in Barcelona. Surpassing a couple that were built for the Barcelona Olympics, and now it's going to be the biggest church in the world as well. So that's 172.5 metres tall. And next year marks 100 years since Gaudi passed away, and they have guaranteed that it is going to be finished next year.
We thought our infrastructure projects took a long time.
Well, it's like they just kept adding to it. They just couldn't stop. You know, when you're painting and you just don't know when to just leave it be. I would add a little coda here that if you are planning to visit Barcelona and the Sagrada Familia, you need to book weeks, if not months in advance. We arrived in Barcelona very jet-lagged, thought we booked skip the queue line, and actually booked for a different church entirely. So don't do that.
Okay. And then you're waiting in the hot sun and
and growling at each other. Yeah, it's not good.
All right, you've got a global study, results of a global study this morning on naming New Zealand as the top adventure destination for young travellers. What's the secret to our source?
Yes, so they looked at 70 different countries. This is a global index by the International Trade Administration, and they based it on things like natural assets, adventure activities, safety and sustainability. Perhaps not surprisingly, we scored very highly for outdoor recreation. So, you've got your hiking, your bungee jumping, skiing, water sports, alongside environmental protections and also tourism infrastructure. The safety record was paramount, which is really good for us. And I like this too. We also placed first in the world for women travellers and solo travellers as well. So,
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of, like particularly from South America, you'll have young women come over and go camping, solo camper vanning up and down New Zealand in a van, that kind of thing. That's cool.
Yep, so we were number one. Australia came in at number 2, and the top 5 rounded out by Switzerland, Costa Rica and Austria.
Great. And the safety, the key aspect there.
Yeah. They say that really catapulted us into the top spot, that it is a pretty safe country despite what, we may read.
Yeah, you have that, because you just throw yourself off a bridge, you want to bounce back.
Well, yeah, you do. You want to know that we have quite sort of firm rules in place about that kind of thing.
Now, are we getting more? We are getting more turbulence.
Yes,
on flights,
we are
aren't
getting more turbulent. Yes, it is turbulent times. So recently a Delta Airlines flight from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam hit turbulence. This made news all around the world. Had to land an emergency landing in Minneapolis, and 25 people were taken to hospital, which wasn't good. So a study they did in 2017 predicts that turbulence strong enough to cause injury could double or triple globally by the end of this century, all down to climate change, of course. So I had a look at the stats. Most of the turbulent routes globally were based in the northern hemisphere, you'll be pleased to know, mostly over mountain ranges, Andes and Himalayas, particularly bumpy. But I looked at Oceania, and New Zealand does feature quite heavily in the most turbulent flight stakes. So popular flights like Nandi to Wellington and Auckland to Nandi, they were number 9 and number 6 respectively. But the bumpiest flight in the region is a domestic one. It is Christchurch to Wellington.
Oh, really?
And anyone who has flown that in rough weather across the strait and trying to land in Wellington
Well, that is true.
may not be surprised by that.
Just any landing in Wellington most of the time.
It's true. There is one thing, though, you can do to reduce your risk of injury. You got it, Ryan.
This became a thing, and obviously, you remember there was a flight from New Zealand to, it was either Singapore or maybe Australia, and somebody was quite seriously injured. And so every time I fly now, there's texts from mother and mother-in-law about the seatbelt thing.
Has everyone got their seatbelt?
Is everyone going to wear your seatbelt for the whole flight?
But yeah, you won't regret it.
No, you won't. No, it'll stop you hitting the roof of the plane, won't it? Lorna, thank you.
Cheers.
Good to see you as always. Lorna Riley, host of the Trip Notes podcast. It is 17 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Next, Chelsea Daniels from The Front Page, then Garth from Business Desk.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
With 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Welcome back. It's Chelsea Time, host of the Front Page podcast. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you. Still got the crimps going on?
Still got the cramps.
Is it a permanent thing now that you've done it? Does it stay crimped?
No, I'm just doing it every day because I got so many compliments on it. And it's easy because you can just put spray in it.
Oh, great.
And then
no, it really does.
I don't have to wash it all week now.
You just look fantastic. You should keep doing it. Okay, enough about your hair. Debt. We're talking about this. We had a discussion with Chris Hipkins, and we were arguing about debt. You know, we had COVID debt, but then we got used to that debt, and then we just kept going. There's good debt and bad debt. And my point to him was, if you're gonna take on debt, you might as well be paying down a house and not buying a Ferrari. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So this morning I spoke to NZ Herald business editor-at-large Liam Dan. We spoke about how New Zealanders are well on their way to a collective $1 trillion in debt in the next few years. At the current rate of growth, we'll hit that in 3 years, in fact. And the biggest part of that debt is mortgage borrowing related to housing. That's just over $377 billion. So that comes as no surprise, does it? Because we've known for a long time that Kiwis, we need to buy houses as investments. That's all we need to do. And for example, our home ownership rate is far greater than Germany. They've got a massive renting culture there. But what do the Germans do with their money? They invest it. They put it into stocks. They put it into their superannuation. They get the country moving. And that's probably what we have to think about going forward, is to moving our investments in different places. Because putting everything into your housing isn't an amazing point to make. So businesses borrowing barely lifted in the last year, and that's not amazing news for the economy. They typically borrow to invest in new equipment that will improve productivity or to expand taking on staff to grab more of that market share. They've been slowing down a bit. Which is a bit iffy, but none of that has been. They haven't done that in the last year. So New Zealand's debt, like I said, compared to say the GDP of the UK or Japan, that's often near about 100% of GDP, or Japan's actually even more, about 150% of GDP, say. So us floating around, the 40-50 mark isn't too bad in an international context.
But earthquake prone, weather related thing. We need a bigger buffer, eh?
We need that rainy day fund. Yeah. And I said to Liam, we had a discussion about, how do we get that rainy day fund? It's like when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and then people say, no, you should have 3 months saved just in case your car breaks down. And, you're sitting there like, well, I need to eat. So it's like, what do we do?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, what do we do, right?
Well, I don't know. That's what your podcast is about, presumably.
You have to listen.
Yeah, well, we will now. Spend less on hair crimpers. That's what I'd do.
I bought this 10 years ago. I found it in my house at the weekend. Leave me alone.
Chelsea Daniels, host of the Front Page podcast, and you can catch that podcast wherever you like to listen. iHeartRadio is
So a bit of a worse result for Mercury than we expected. I think they've just $60 million hit, basically because it's been a drier year and they get a lot of hydro generation. But obviously the impact of having to pay some rather unexpected higher prices, those spot gas prices and so on, are really starting to feed through. So weirdly enough, one of the big gentailers is feeling the same pinch and punch as we all are from those higher spot prices. And that's been reflected in this result. Now they're saying we think we'll bounce back. They're doing forward guidance next year of around $1 billion earnings, so they are expecting to be able to climb back up the hill again. But they're obviously, feeling like they've had a pretty rough year. Yeah,
the Electricity Authority, we've spoken about this 100 times, but they've got a report on how to make the market work better, operate better. Have they commented on that?
They've just dropped that this morning.
Oh,
and so they're talking about the levelling procedures they're looking at. They've got a system there which basically, it's a voluntary system, shaped hedges, which is basically a way, nothing to do with topiary, basically it's a way for smaller retailers to be able to buy chunks of future power to offset bounces in demand, so that we know when there's not as much renewable generation happening, they can offset that. Now, it's been a voluntary thing. The Electricity Authority is saying, look, we'll give it 2 quarters next year to see if more people will actually, if more of those gentailers will sell into that market. At the moment, we're not seeing enough uptake, or we might make it compulsory that they have to supply some into that market so that those smaller retailers get a bit of a shot.
Because the smaller retailers, their argument has always been it's not fair that the gentailers give them. Is this the issue we're talking about? That the gentailers give themselves basically a sweetheart deal?
Well, there's just not I suppose it's a little bit like the supermarkets and they only sell their private label stuff to their own stores. They're saying, no, you've got to create a wholesale system that actually has a little bit of leeway in there for when things get squeaky and tight, when you've got to go to the market and buy a spot price amount because there's suddenly been a colder snap or a period where the solar drops off or the wind drops off and it's a little unexpected. It's like an insurance policy. And they're basically saying, look, you've got to get involved with this market, you four big gentailers, otherwise we will move to some sort of compulsory allocation to that area. And they're also talking about some code changes to introduce mandatory non-discrimination obligations for those four big ones. So they're saying, hey, you've got a couple of months to comment on this, but this is part of that push to try and level the playing field.
All right, Garth, thanks so much for that update. Appreciate it.
Great.
Garth Bray, Business Desk, and we talk business every day thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees, just gone 8 to 9. Their last meeting ended in a screaming match, but today's talks between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky seem to have gone much better. Zelensky called them the best yet, while Trump says the US will provide security guarantees as part of any peace deal and claims Russia will accept them. He said, quote, "We will protect Ukraine." Prospects for future trilateral talks between Trump, Zelensky and Putin have also been tabled. Earlier, I spoke with Nicholas Koo, Associate Professor of Politics at the University of Otago. Started off by asking what he makes of the comments from particularly on territory, because during this meeting, there was a journalist that asked a question of Zelensky. Are you willing to give up territory? Is territory on the table? His response was telling. He said, I want to end the war. We need to end this war. Here's the reaction from Nicholas Koo during our interview.
Well, so far so good. The devil really is in the details. So it does all really hinge at the end of the day on a security guarantee from the United States. And it's reassuring to hear that Trump is, at least in theory, interested in this. Now, as we've said, the key is the details. Is Trump really, at the end of the day, willing to enforce any security guarantee that the United States issues? So this is the big question, the whole issue of U.S. reliability. And also, this is whole issue of territory, sure, I mean, if that's what it takes to get a deal, but even then, the devil in the details. How much territory? Is there going to be legal recognition of the territory that's given up? So, the more we probe, the more questions there are on this issue.
I want to play for you. Yesterday, we spoke to the ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador to New Zealand and Australia, and I asked him about this exact issue, about territory, giving up or ceding territory. And he put it this way. I want to get your take on it. Have a listen.
That territory can end up under the Russian occupation, which will never be recognized by Ukraine or anybody else, but it cannot be ceded as a sovereign territory to Russia. And that's very important to keep it in mind. As you remember, Baltic nations, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they were under the Soviet occupation for 50 years. They had their own governments in place, and they were never recognized as part of the Soviet Union. So we may end up with having a similar arrangement.
So, Nicholas, in other words, they can not cede sovereignty because they can't under their constitution, but they could allow some territory to be occupied by the Russians.
Sure. So this would be the contours of a deal, right? Some sort of agreement whereby the Ukrainians cede territory, but it's not legally recognized as being ceded for the reasons the ambassador has stated. And again, I have to repeat, sure, if that's what it takes to get an agreement, but at the end of the day, there needs to be enforcement of an agreement. And this is where the U.S. security guarantees are absolutely critical. Now, I would say a couple of months ago, earlier in the year, Zelensky himself said that security guarantees without American guarantees are not security guarantees. So it's not even the case that Europeans can actually think that they can actually help out. That's great. But at the end of the day, you need enforcement and power to back up any security guarantee that's issued by the United States.
So any deal that might be agreed to, obviously we're not going to get one today, but any deal that's agreed to with just a European backstop isn't going to be sufficient in your mind. It has to have the Americans' firepower behind it.
That's exactly correct. There has to be U.S. Power to back up all this. Now, this is where this whole issue of the reliability of the Trump administration is going to be tested in a really significant way. And I will not underestimate the challenges that the Trump administration faces in issuing a security guarantee. It's fine that we get an agreement in the short run, but this security agreement is going to be tested over years.
Yeah. And what about this idea? I'm just seeing the latest reporting. This is from Zelensky. He says it was their best talks yet. They did talk specifically about security guarantees from the United States, and he says it was a constructive and specific meeting. What about this idea that you would negotiate a peace deal without first a ceasefire? Is that unusual?
Well, it's done before, but at the same time, I want to point out that this is not the core issue. While in the short run, one would want Ukraine to have the sort of assurance. At the same time, the core issue is actually getting to a peace deal and the enforcement of the deal. So we don't want to see further losses, and this is the issue with the short run. Why Zelensky's insisting on a short-run agreement, which is that he wants to stem the deaths and the losses on the Ukrainian battlefront, and this is the core issue. So if he can get that, that would be fantastic, but I just don't see Putin budging on this issue.
That was earlier in the program, Nicholas Koo, Associate Professor of Politics at the University of Otago. Time now is 2 minutes away from 9 o'clock. And Katie Oliver looking ahead this morning from the Herald. Hey, Katie.
Good morning.
Good to see you as always. Now, customers of the Victoria Park New World, which we burnt down, we all saw the pictures, have a new alternative opening today.
Yes, so there have been queues and chaos outside the New World in Point Chev this morning. Now this has opened early. It was originally set to open on September 9, but they've of course brought it forward to today to accommodate those customers that are without their Victoria Park New World, which of course burnt down in June. Now what we do know is that this is the closest for those new customers. The nearest New World is about 20 minutes in each direction, so this is giving them a good alternative, considering their ye old faithful Victoria Park burnt down. Now this is a $73 million New World, and it is the biggest New World in the North Island. So it's got 4 levels, it's got lots to look forward to, so needless to say there are quite a few people there this morning.
4 levels?
Yes.
Are they all, including car parks?
Including the basement car park,
okay.
yes.
Right.
So our business reporter Tom Raynor will be covering that as the day goes on.
Oh, cool. There is also Woolies. Well, there's a Woolies that's closer, but
yeah, but
people like New World, they like New World, don't they?
I feel like you're either Woolies, Packies or New World, and once you're New World, you don't tend to go elsewhere. Like I have flatmates that are very much New World. That's where they go.
Yeah.
They can't do Packies.
They're a little more bougie.
They like the bougie.
And then there's your Pharaohs.
Yeah, and then there's, I couldn't. Pharaohs is like 100 metres, just very close to my house, but I couldn't go there. I can't set foot because then I'll lose all my money.
Yeah, it's a big pit. Hey, news out of the South Island this morning. We've got a key South Island highway that's been closed.
Yes, so State Highway 8, now this is from Ferry to Lake Pukaki, is closed due to heavy snow. Now overnight there was another section of the same state highway, Lindis Pass between Terrace and Omarama, was closed overnight due to snow, but it is now open. Now that was an update at 8 a.m. There's going to be more updates as the day goes on because there's a lot of snow down there and a lot of black ice, so NZTA is just advising motorists to take care down south today.
All right, Katie, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. Katie Oliver from the Herald. It is 9 o'clock. Let's get to Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. They've been discussing the conflict between Russia and Ukraine following Trump's meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. Other European leaders are also there. Zelensky says there needs to be pressure on Russia to end the war. Trump says substantial progress is being made. Councils say a revamped building consents framework provides better balance. The government's proposing a new liability model that holds parties responsible only for their share of work. It's also allowing councils to voluntarily consolidate their building consent authorities. Local Government New Zealand Vice President Campbell Barry says consents will likely be processed more quickly because councils won't be as risk averse.
We still want those standards to be held high and expectations to be held high, but it won't be councils and ratepayers at the end when things do go wrong, which is the current case.
A soldier who admitted to espionage has revealed more details about his connections to far-right groups. The court-martial continues at Manawatu's Linton military camp today after he admitted trying to pass on critical and classified information to who he thought was a foreign agent. The soldier had links to the Dominion movement and Action Zealandia, but maintains they were a positive support for him. Open Justice reporter Jeremy Wilkinson says many case details are being kept out of the public eye. He says journalists are being excluded when sensitive information is discussed. An apology from Public Service Minister Judith Collins as teachers prepare to strike over pay. Last week, Collins twice claimed a secondary teacher with a decade's experience earned $147,000, but she's since confirmed just 450 teachers, less than 2% of the workforce, earn that much. The PPTA says most teachers with a decade's experience earn $103,000 a year. Collins said she's sorry for mixing the message. Brewers could soon make beer faster. An Otago University study has discovered playing white noise can reduce the fermentation process by up to 31 hours without significantly affecting the flavour. Fermentation can take on average 5 to 7 days. Associate Professor Graham Ayres says these findings could have a substantial impact on the beer industry.
Time is money, so any time you can shave off a fermentation is good news for brewers.
All trains in the capital will be replaced by buses during off-peak times today due to a union meeting. The Rail and Maritime Transport Union meet annually, and Metlink says it fully supports its union members in attendance. Buses will run on all lines between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, Auckland FC have signed 9-cap all-white Ollie Sale. The 29-year-old goalkeeper replaces Alex Paulson, who's headed back to Bournemouth. Australian driver Oscar Piastri will have a grandstand named after him at the Albert Park Formula One circuit in Melbourne next March. Gael Monfils will return to Auckland as the 38-year-old looks to defend his ASB Classic tennis title in January. Finn Fisher-Black and Dion Smith have been selected to ride the Vuelta a España Grand Cycling Tour starting Sunday morning.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, rather an unsettled looking Tuesday ahead of us. Cold air feeding up from the south, bringing some snowfall over the higher passes of the Southland, and for this afternoon, perhaps even out towards the Desert Road as well. We'll find a southerly change moves up through Wellington, giving a pretty windy, wet-looking story there. And across that western side of the Northland, showers through the daytime. Where we'll find that snowfall, though, there are some road snowfall warnings across many of the passes, including the Desert Road this afternoon. We've also got a strong wind watch out for Wellington as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Down south, still some showers pushing through, still pretty windy around the likes of the Otago Peninsula. Still a bit of snow around first thing, but that should lift as we head through the morning time. It starts off fairly wet through Canterbury. Rain moves northwards. It will become more showery. Still with those snow showers across the Canterbury High Country. The best of the sunshine at the other side of the hills through the western coast. A windy, wet-looking start today here in Wellington. We'll keep hold of those southerly winds through the daytime. That wind watch in force this afternoon. We'll also find showers feeding up this eastern coast, mainly skirting the likes of Napier and pushing through in towards Wairoa. This western side of the Northland, well, that stays pretty showery throughout the day with longer spells of rain from time to time, some heavier falls, perhaps even the risk of some thunder and hail as we head through Tuesday.
And that is it for us for this morning. Thanks so much for watching. Great to have your company as always. We'll be back and do it all again tomorrow from 7 o'clock. In the meantime, more news at nzherald.co.nz. A quick thank you to our partners before we go. Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barkers, Max, 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilma, and of course Noel Leeming. From all the team at Herald Now, thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.